Hear it. Mr. DeGuerin, we're back in session.
Yes, sir. When he testifies about the period of time after Kathy went missing and the police investigation and what he did up until the time basically he was taken out of it by the Durst organization and the lawyers they hired, was that he learned about what the investigation was. We don't offer it for the truth of the matter, but that he learned that Kathy had been seen in Manhattan.
So 1250, the evidence code, admits evidence of state of mind when it is itself an issue in the action. So will you explain to me how his belief that is so is anything but a way to bring in inadmissible, an unreliable hearsay? What is the significance of his state of mind about this inadmissible hearsay? Explain that to me, because we've been through this 10 times.
Yes, sir. I think his state of mind is the very issue. What he did as a result of Kathy going missing and why he did what he did.
And what is it that he did that is relevant?
Well, he began his cooperation with the police. He was kept abreast of what the police were finding out. He offered a reward. He allowed the search of the South Salem house, the search of Riverside Drive.
That's because of the disappearance. It has nothing to do with the hearsay. He didn't allow a search of Riverside Drive because he'd heard hearsay evidence of sightings.
Well, it certainly played a part in his decision-making, all during the aftermath of, excuse me, of the disappearance.
No, nothing's different. You've not shown me anything different. Your objection, an objection to that would be sustained, but your motion to admit that would be denied.
And his belief, without offering the source of his belief was that she disappeared in Manhattan. Now, there's been a police officer that's already testified about that. That was Trooper Harney. And that's in evidence.
Trooper Harney believed Mr. Durst when he said that she took the train to New York. So he's the source of his own belief.
No.
So he can't take that, present that as for independent evidence. Now, there are these hearsay accounts that are, that are not reliable. They have the hallmarks of being manufactured. But that's all right. You explain to me how that's relevant to a relevant state of mind. Then you explain that. Try again to explain that to me.
Well, first, as to Trooper Harney said all systems indicate that she made it safely to Manhattan and disappeared from there.
I'm sorry.
All systems indicate that she, the quotation is, excuse me, all aspects of the investigation reflect Mrs. Durst's safe arrival in New York City and subsequent disappearance from that location. That's in evidence in the Trooper Harney's report.
Perhaps I should strike it.
That's not in evidence. That report's not in evidence.
It's not in evidence. Then you're not speaking correctly, Mr. DeGuerin.
Your Honor, can we be briefing her on this? So Mr. DeGuerin's gone on. This is it a very briefing, Your Honor?
All right. I don't even know that it's called for. But go ahead.
Well, no. The court said that the motion was denied. Literally, Mr. DeGuerin just continued as if you hadn't denied the motion. So I'm not sure what the status is. And then the court was entertaining more of it. So if the court's saying nope, it's done, I don't need to say anything.
You don't need to say anything. There might have been some new evidence presented. There might be something different. I want to remain open-minded. Should there be something different that then allows this evidence to come in? Nothing is different. I've heard nothing new.
Nothing to add. Then we'll save it.
Okay. Your motion to admit such evidence again is denied. You may not discuss that subject. It's excluded. Our jurors all have returned. I'm not surprised. Thank you. Mr. Durst is present. Mr. Chesnop, Mr. DeGuerin are present for him. Mr. Lewin, Mr. Millia, Mr. Bailey, and Henderson, and Miata all are present. Mr. DeGuerin, you may resume your, well, let me say, we're going to go straight to 3:30, all right? I think 1:30 to 3:30, we can do that. Oh, Chip Lewis is here also. Mr. Lewis, good afternoon.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said. But
Chip Lewis is here.
Oh, I heard that.
Yeah, anyway, so we're going to go right through to 3:30, 1:30 to 3:30. So let's take a deep breath and buckle our seatbelts. Here you go. Mr. DeGuerin, you may commence.
So Bob, no divorce was ever filed, is that right?
That's right.
And we were at the point where you and Kathy had taken the apartment on Riverside Drive. You sought it together, you signed it up together, and she moved in about 2 weeks after you did, right?
Yes.
She was in medical school and getting close to her last semester in medical school. Was she missing any classes?
Here, maybe Mr. DeGuerin clarified it, but it's, what's the vaguest time? I just want to make sure we're clear what time he's asking. Maybe I missed it.
So Mr. DeGuerin set the time at, she's in medical school, she's getting close to her last semester.
Oh,
And
my
the-
apologies.
And that's the premise, is she now missing classes?
I didn't hear that, Your Honor. Apologies.
And so for specifics, in late 1981, to your knowledge, was she missing any medical school classes? And by classes, I mean, of course, either rotations or internships or whatever she was doing with medical school. Was she missing any time from there?
Well, I was not aware of the problems Kathy was having with cocaine until she moved to Riverside
Motion
Drive.
non-responsive, motion to strike.
Stricken, non-responsive.
Were you aware of the extent of the problems she was having with cocaine until she moved to Riverside Drive?
Assumes facts not in evidence. With the
Over.
form of the question, Your Honor. Question assumes certain facts, then asks a question based on that. Those facts have not been established regarding that time period.
Overruled.
Speaking of,
It is a speaking objection. Refrain from that. I get it. You don't have to explain it to me, and I'm overruling it. Thank you.
you understand the question, Bob?
I'm getting to it. The summer of 1981. She was supposed to graduate in June of 1982. I believe that summer, her cocaine use started becoming a problem. but I was not fully aware of it until she moved in with me in Riverside Drive.
Okay. So how did you become aware of it? What did you notice?
Well, the first thing I noticed, and this was really back in the summer of 1981, I got a call from our banker at Chemical Bank and said, your wife has overdrawn her account. He told me that there's not that much money. I think it was like $20 or $30 or something. And he told me if I authored it, he would transfer money from my account to Kathy's account so that he would not have to bounce the check.
So did you
So
do
I
that?
authorized him to do that.
So did you do that?
Yes.
Did you ever cut her off? Did you ever cut off her credit card?
Never did anything like that.
Did you
For
cut off?
about 3 months, every other month, the banker would call me and tell him your wife's account is an overdraft. And each time I authorized him to transfer enough money from my account to Kathy's account so that he would not have to bounce a check.
Were you generally familiar with the expenses that she was paying out of her, or supposed to be paying out of her bank account?
This alerted me to the fact that Kathy must be doing something with her money other than what she should be doing, and the something seemed obvious to me that she was using the money to buy cocaine.
calls for speculation.
So, okay. So, did
The
you?
question did not call for speculation.
Well, motion to strike the answer is non-responsive.
No, it answered also.
What's that, Your Honor?
He answered the question.
So,
You may cross-examine on the point if you think it's important.
did you do anything to talk to Kathy about where the money was going?
Yes, and I asked her about their use of cocaine. She had a prescription inhaler that would cauterize her nasal passages. A bunch of times I brought up that she was hurting herself, that the cocaine had become a big problem.
Were you concerned about it?
She wasn't doing anything with school anymore. It seemed that she would go frequently very late, and rather than coming home and studying, she would not do anything having to do with school.
Did that concern you?
Yes.
So did you and Kathy have discussions about that?
We had arguments about that.
Let me ask you about, there was some evidence about a school loan. Was it necessary for Kathy to take out a school loan?
She took out a school loan unbeknownst to me.
What,
She had obviously spent the money that she was supposed to use for rent and the rest of it for something else.
well, once she moved from East 86th Street into the Riverside Drive apartment, did you still have rent to pay at East 86th Street?
Oh, we kept the apartment. We intended to sublease it, probably to a lady who worked as leasing agent for the Durst organization. But the marriage started, the relationship got worse and worse. The longer she was in Riverside Drive, like I would find her hiding, snorting cocaine. She would sneak snorting cocaine. When we would go to dinner, she would end up in the bathroom before dinner and after dinner. everything became a problem.
How did you see that affecting her ability to tend to her responsibilities at school?
Objection
Well,
6 backs on
obviously
evidence and
affected
lacks
her.
foundation.
Okay, just a moment, pause, please. See that affecting her ability to tend to her responsibilities at school. Overruled.
You
You
may
may
answer.
answer the question.
Your Honor, may we approach, please?
Not on that.
Your Honor, the defense, whenever they've asked to approach, sidebar, the court allows it.
I think, I see good reason. I don't see good reason here.
Well, because I probably can't explain it to you from here, so I'm asking.
All right,
to approach.
sidebar. Mr. DeGuerin, you may resume your examination.
Let me rephrase the question slightly. What was your concern about how Kathy's cocaine use might affect her responsibilities at school?
Well, it affected her responsibilities, but it also affected our life because everything got to be a problem. Kathy would hide snorting cocaine from me. It kind of drove us to other people. That's when we first both started seeing other people. And my hearing aid is messed up. It is talking to me.
Will you be able to hear me with your hearing aid in your pocket?
Well, we'll see.
Let's just work with that simultaneous transcript. We'll see how well it works. I think it works very well.
Okay, how Kathy's cocaine use affected your relationship is one thing, but what I want to know is what was your concern about her cocaine use and school?
Well, there's no way that you could snort as much cocaine as she was snorting and still do the various stuff she was supposed to do. She was working in the hospital, involved in patient care, making decisions that affected patients.
And so, it may be just stating the obvious, but what did cocaine do that you saw might interfere with that?
She would fall down now and then. She couldn't carry on a conversation. I did not think so anyway.
And as far as your relationship was concerned, you're now living at Riverside Drive together. Were you spending most time in Manhattan at Riverside Drive or most of the time at South Salem, or what was the situation?
We spent all of our time at Riverside Drive, except when one of us was with someone else.
All right. And did you go to South Salem on some occasion?
Weekends we would go.
Is winter in South Salem, well, how is winter in South Salem?
Well, it's It's colder, about 10 degrees colder in northern Westchester than in the city, and you get a lot of snow.
Okay, let's talk about, there was an incident described by Ann Anderson that happened at Riverside Drive. You know the incident I'm talking about?
Yes.
All right. First, describe for the jurors what the apartment at Riverside Drive was like. What was the layout?
It's hard to describe a layout.
Can you draw a diagram of it?
I did a sketch way back when.
Yeah, that's way back when. Can you draw one now?
Well, right now, there were 2 apartments that were considered the penthouse at Riverside Drive. Rather than being built full like the rest of the building, there was a large terrace that went around the outside of the building. My apartment was the front one and was about 2,500 square feet. Ann Anderson Doyle and her husband had the back apartment that was about 700 square feet. You could get to either apartment by walking out the front door of that apartment, cross the elevator foyer, and in the front door of the other apartment.
Okay, that's getting from one apartment to the other inside the building. Was there outside access by the patio or the terrace to?
Both apartments had doors accessing the terrace. So if you wanted to get to Ann Anderson Doyle's apartment without going through the elevator foyer, you'd walk out onto the terrace and then walk around to the back where they had their door to the terrace. Our dog, Igor, would go back and forth all the time.
So was there any barrier on the terrace between the 2 apartments, or were did they both access the terrace, the same terrace?
No, there was no barrier. There was nothing stopping anyone from going to our terrace to their terrace.
On the evening that this event occurred, had Kathy been using cocaine?
I have no idea.
Did you have an argument or fight?
I did not think so, but my doorbell rang, and I think his name was Kevin Doyle, Ann's husband. Kevin Doyle was out in the elevator foyer, and he said, "Your wife's in our apartment, and she says you're beating her up and she's afraid of you." I had no idea that Kathy was not in her study. Seemingly, Kathy had either walked out our door to the terrace, or, according to Ann Doyle, she had climbed out she had climbed out the window onto the terrace and walked back to the Doyle's apartment.
Was it necessary for her to crawl out of a window to get to the terrace?
No.
All right. And so what happened after Mr. Doyle came to the door and told you that Kathy was over there and said she was afraid of you?
I went back to bed.
Did Kathy come home?
Yes.
Was that the end of it?
This became a standing joke. Someone, I don't believe her lawyer, probably Gilberta, had convinced Kathy that if Kathy could show that I was physically abusing her, she would get a bigger settlement if we ever got divorced. So Kathy was doing these various things that she thought would impress a judge.
So had you had any argument or fight or that night?
I had not been arguing with her.
She also said, that is Ann Anderson Doyle, said that Kathy said you had a gun. Did you have a gun in New York?
No, I did not have a gun in New York.
Does New York City have some of the most restrictive gun laws in the country? For pistols, handguns, I mean.
Guns in New York are an enormous penalty.
So you did not have a gun?
I never had a gun in New York.
Okay. So now, it's the end of 1981 going into 1982, January of 1982. Were you generally aware that Kathy was still in school and still, well, how aware were you of her schooling?
I was not that aware of her schooling, but I knew that she had signed up for a How to Get Off the Drugs course at Lenox Hill Hospital. Lenox Hill Hospital is on the Upper East Side of New York, which is considered the most expensive zip code in the country.
Let me stop you there. When did Kathy sign up for this drug course at Lenox
Around
Hill?
Thanksgiving of 1981.
What was your understanding about what that program was about?
It was an outpatient clinic, I guess. You went 4 or 5 days a week for 3 or 4 hours. They did not believe in cold turkey. Their theory was if their patients can decrease whatever it's doing that they don't want to do, then that's an accomplishment. Whether they were smoking cigarettes or shooting heroin, as long as the patient did less of it every week, they considered that a success.
Did Kathy complete that course, if you know?
I don't think she did, no.
And that was at Thanksgiving of 1981?
I think she started at Thanksgiving 1981.
And when was it supposed to be completed?
I'm not real sure. I sort of found out about it by accident. Because Kathy was on the phone talking to somebody else who was in the program.
Okay, I want to get to the weekend of January 30th, 31st, 30th being on a Saturday, 31st being on a Sunday, and Friday being the 29th. What did, were you in New York City that week before, that is, leading up to January the 29th?
Well, sometime, probably around January 15th, our dog started favoring his left rear hip. Kathy, being the doctor of the family, felt the hip, could tell it was swollen, could tell it was warm, knew that there was something wrong with the hip, made an appointment with the vet for Monday, February 1st. Seemingly in southern Westchester, there was one surgical veterinarian who made the tour of all the other veterinarians in the area. You had to make an appointment with him in advance and pay him in advance.
So when did you have an appointment for your dog to see this dog surgeon?
The appointment was for February 1st, Monday, either 8 or 8:30. First appointment in during the day. And the veterinarian had said that the kind of breed that Igor was, a Norwegian elk hound, they tend to get infection in their hips. Something like in a human being would be a varicose vein, but that when the infection starts, you have to cut it out.
What kind of breed was Igor?
He was a Norwegian elk hound, a very rare breed, but an unusual breed. He was not a very good city dog because he shed enormously.
Did you, what was your practice with Igor? Did you keep him with you both at South Salem and Riverside Drive?
Yes, Igor had it real good. He had his house by the lake and he had his terrace, and he had a doggy door on the terrace so he could go visit the Doyles or visit with us, and whoever petted him the most or fed him the most, that's where he would sleep.
All right, so in the week leading up to January 29th, the Friday, where were you?
We were in Riverside Drive, and we drove up to South Salem.
Okay, I'm going to get to that. But were you there in the city that entire week, Monday through Friday?
We were in the city.
Were you there that entire week, Monday through Friday?
Yes.
Okay. And was Igor with you, like you said, at Riverside Drive?
Yes.
So what was your plan, yours and Kathy's plan, for the weekend?
We did not really have a plan. We intended to leave Friday night after the traffic let up and stay for the weekend. And then Monday morning, we were going to take Igor to the vet and leave him there. The vet had told us the dog would have to spend 2 or 3, 4 maybe, days until the incision healed.
Okay, so on Friday, let me back up a second. The appointment was with the vet on Monday morning. What time and where?
Well, that was about 5 minutes from South Salem House on Route 35, which is the main drag there. We did not really have plans for the weekend at all. We were happy in South Salem. It was pretty. We enjoyed it. We intended on Monday to take the dog. We did not, I did not at least, I don't think Kathy did either, plan on seeing anybody over the weekend.
Well, was Kathy supposed to attend medical school or rotation or whatever it was on Monday morning?
Well, Kathy was in medical school Monday to Friday.
but the Monday that you were going to drop the dog at the vet near,
She was gonna drive from the vet. We were gonna drive from the vet to Albert Einstein, and then I would continue down to Riverside Drive.
so what time would you drop the dog at the vet, and what time would she be able to reach Albert Einstein on Monday?
From the vet to Albert Einstein would be at most an hour, probably 40, 45 minutes, because there would not be traffic. Half the problem getting into Manhattan is the traffic. Albert Einstein being in the Bronx, north of Manhattan, there was never very much traffic.
So, again, to orient and educate those on the jury, if the Bronx is north of Manhattan, was it closer to South Salem than, say, your office?
No, the Bronx is north of Manhattan, but it's still part of New York City.
Yes.
It's far away from South Salem.
But what's closer to South Salem, the Bronx or where your office was in Manhattan?
South Salem's way north. The Bronx is north. Manhattan is southerly, south from the Bronx.
And so the plan was to take the dog to the vet near South Salem, then drive Kathy to medical school, and then to drive to Riverside Drive or to your office?
Well, I had a meeting on Monday morning. My brother Douglas and I were buying our first building. We had a meeting with a seller's law firm named Braddock something or other on the Upper East Side at what I remember is 11 o'clock. And we had partners. So I intended to take the dog to the vet, take Kathy to whether she was doing the hospital at Montefiore or whether she was going to Albert Einstein, leave her there, drive to Riverside Drive, put on a suit, and then drive to the Upper East Side for this closing.
So I guess my question is, would you have had enough time, the original plan, to drop the dog at the vet, then drive Kathy to either the hospital or the medical school, then go to Riverside Drive and change clothes, and then go to your meeting? Would you have enough time to do that?
Yeah, there should have been plenty of time.
Okay. So on Friday, January the 31st, before I get to that, where was Susan Berman living in January of 1982?
She was in the co-op she owned on Beekman Place.
And so the jury can understand Beekman Place is in Manhattan.
Yes, Beekman Place is on 51st Street on the way east side of Manhattan.
Right on the East River?
Yes,
Okay. And again,
it's a very sought-after neighborhood.
that part of Manhattan has the East River on the east side and the Hudson River on the west side, correct?
Correct.
Where Susan lived, at Beekman Place, on the east side of Manhattan, is that a long-distance call from South Salem?
Well, Manhattan, all of Manhattan, is a long-distance call from South Salem.
Okay. Now back to Friday. Did you get to go to South Salem when you were planning to Friday afternoon?
Well, Friday, Kathy went out with friends after work and did not get to Riverside Drive until maybe 10:30.
10:30 in the evening?
She was thinking that she wanted to stay in the city until Saturday. Also, the weather forecast was for a rainy weekend. Rainy weekends are very boring in South Salem. I wanted to go up Friday night, and I convinced Kathy that she could lie in the back seat and sleep if she wanted, but I wanted to get up to South Salem Friday night, and I won that argument. We must have left Riverside Drive close to midnight.
Okay, so you and Kathy driving in your car, drive from Riverside Drive to South Salem Friday night, about midnight?
Her car,
Her car.
her Mercedes. Yes,
Did you also have a car then?
I had a Volkswagen Beetle.
Where was it?
I garaged it in a garage we owned,
Where?
56th Street.
Okay. And was there parking at the Riverside Drive apartment?
No, 1 block from the apartment, there was a building with a large garage in the basement, and we paid for a monthly parking space in that garage.
In fact, is parking space at a high premium in Manhattan.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Kathy comes home a little late Friday night, 10 o'clock, 10:30, but you want to go to South Salem. She wants to stay, and you win that disagreement, and you drive to South Salem. Is that right?
Yes, I went to the garage, got the car, went back to the Riverside Drive apartment, got the dog, and got Kathy.
When she came home that evening, had she been drinking or using cocaine, if you know?
I have no idea, but I assume she was.
All right. And so what time did you get to South Salem? That now would have been Saturday morning.
Around 1:30.
What do you have to do to open the house or get to the house?
It's a little house, so there's not that much involved in opening it. Mostly, you gotta turn the heat on, because we would turn it down to 50 degrees when we were not there.
Did you have a housekeeper that kept the grounds of the house?
We had Janet Fink.
Okay. So what happened Saturday? What did you and Kathy do Saturday?
Well, Kathy slept half of Saturday. What did I do? I don't think I did very much.
Did you and Kathy go out to eat? What did you do on Saturday?
We ate whatever was left in the freezer.
Okay. Did you see anybody that night?
No.
The next morning, Sunday morning, January 31st, what did you do?
Kathy was getting antsy. It had rained from when we got there. It was still raining Sunday morning. Kathy wanted to do something. I said, there's nothing to do. Read a book. I was looking forward to watching the football game.
So what happened later that afternoon?
Well, I went for a jog. When I got back from the jog, Kathy was in her sweats, and she seemingly had spoken to Gilberta, and Gilberta had invited us over for dinner. Kathy wanted to go to Gilberta's house for dinner.
Did you want to go?
No, and I didn't go.
Why did you not want to go to Gilberta's house?
I don't like, by then I absolutely did not like Gilberta. Did not like Gilberta's influence over Kathy, and just plain did not like Gilberta.
Was there any kind of argument or fight over that?
No, I insisted if Kathy wanted to go to Gilberta's house, that she drive me to the little grocery store at the bottom of the lake so I could get the Sunday New York Times, and then drive me back to South Salem, and then she could take off to Gilberta's house.
Okay, and did that happen?
Yes.
What happened next?
Well, Kathy left.
About what time did Kathy leave?
Sometime 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
So it was still daylight.
It's daylight. The roads between where Gilberta lived and South Salem are all 2-lane blacktop that wanders this way and wanders that way. It's not a pleasant drive in the rain at all.
Was it raining?
It was raining. I think it rained the whole weekend.
Well, now you went for a jog in the afternoon. Was it raining then?
Yes, it was raining.
You jog in the rain?
Sure.
Not now.
No, I think my jogging days in the rain are over.
So Kathy leaves in the afternoon and goes, assume to Gilberta's. Did you hear from her later that day?
Yes, Kathy telephoned and she wanted to stay over Sunday night at Gilberta's house. I said, you can't do that. We got an appointment to take the dog Monday morning, and by that time, the dog was not using his left rear leg at all. Clearly, whatever the problem was had gotten worse, and I reminded Kathy of that.
About what time was it when she called and said she wanted to stay over at Gilberta's?
6,
6 p.m. in the evening?
yeah.
What would that have done with the plans to take the dog to the vet and to get Kathy to school?
Well, we would have missed the appointment. The appointment was the first appointment in the morning, 8 or 8:30. If Kathy stayed in Gilberta's house, unless she got back to South Salem, like at 7 o'clock in the morning, we would miss the appointment with the vet. And there was no way, if Kathy stayed over at Gilberta's house, that Kathy would have come home early in the morning.
How far was Gilberta's house from the South Salem house?
About an hour and a half,
Which direction?
northeast.
Okay, so even further away from the Bronx and Manhattan.
Yes,
What town or state was Gilberta's house?
in Newtown, Connecticut. Newtown is famous for one of those first mass shootings where the guy went into the elementary school and killed 20 first graders.
And Newtown, or where Gilberta's house was, would have made it impossible to make it to the dog and to Manhattan or the Bronx for her class. Is that right?
Well, as I said, if Kathy left Gilberta's house at 6 o'clock in the morning and drove to South Salem, there would be enough time. But I was sure that if Kathy stayed at Gilberta's house, she would not do that.
Why? Why were you so sure?
I knew Kathy.
Meaning, what did you think would interfere?
First, if she was going to Gilberta's house, they would stay up most of the night, snorting cocaine. And they would not be interested in getting up early to drive to South Salem, to drive to the vet.
And so that was your concern?
Yes.
Okay, so you're talking to Kathy on the phone. She wants to stay at Gilberta's house overnight. How did that phone call get resolved?
Well, that Kathy was angry at me because it was raining. I assured her I had nothing to do with the rain. Kathy was also angry because when we drove up, we should have stopped at a gas station and gotten diesel fuel. The Mercedes took diesel. There were very few gas stations that sold diesel near South Salem. So we would have to drive to one of those gas stations. It was my fault since I was the one who drove up while Kathy slept, that I did not stop to get diesel on the way up when it would have been easy.
Okay, so how did the phone call get resolved?
Phone call got resolved, so I insisted she come back to South Salem.
Was there any discussion on the phone call about Peter Schwartz?
No.
Okay. So did Kathy come home?
Yes.
What time did she get home?
7:30, 7:45.
At that time of the year, 7:30, 7:45 in the evening in New York in the winter in January, was it dark?
Absolutely dark. Got dark at 5 p.m.
Okay. When she got home, what was her condition?
Loaded. I was surprised that she could have driven the whole way from Gilberta's house without cracking up the car.
When you say loaded, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, I assumed she was snorting cocaine. She was definitely drinking. She was kind of wobbling around. She wanted... What did she want? She wanted to drive to the city
That night?
that night.
Was she in any condition to drive?
Well, I did not think so. She reminded me that there were times when she could drive when she couldn't walk.
Did you think that was safe?
I told Kathy that I was going to go out and disable the Mercedes.
Would you have been able to drive her to Manhattan that night?
I would have been able to, but I wasn't going to.
Why not?
Why? The dog is due in the kennel the next morning at 8 o'clock. Why would I go to Manhattan?
Okay, so Was there an argument over that?
Yes.
Tell the jury about that argument.
I said, give me the keys. Kathy hated the cold. She wore a big, down, tan coat that went from her ears to her ankles. The coat had two big pockets in the front where Kathy kept everything. Her purse, compact cases, eyeliner, dollar bills, coins, keys. So when I said, give me the keys, she looked at the coat. And then we both made a headlong dive to grab the coat.
Where was the coat?
It was draped over the couch, the back of the couch.
All right. What happened
Kathy
next?
got one arm, I got the other arm. We both pulled, and a bunch of stuff came out of the pockets, including the keys. So I picked up the keys and said, I'm gonna go out and disable the car.
What did you do next?
I went outside, opened up the hood, and unplugged one of the battery cables. Then I walked back inside. When I got back inside, Kathy was just getting out of the shower.
So let me stop you there. When you went outside to disable the car by taking the battery cable off, where was Kathy?
In the house,
Where in the house?
I don't know if she was in the living room or in the bedroom.
Well, when you got the keys, let me back up even further. When both of you got to the coat and the things fell out on the floor, the keys fell out on the floor, where was she then?
We were both, that was in the living room.
Was there any pushing or shoving or any kind of physical fight there?
Just pulling the coat.
All right. Okay. So you go out to the car, you take the battery cable off, you come back inside, and Kathy's been in the shower?
She had just gotten out of the shower, and she was putting on the clothes that she had worn Friday night when we drove up. She had gone to Roberta's house wearing sweats. So she had taken off the sweats, taken a shower, and now she was putting on her jeans and cowboy boots and cowboy type shirt, and she had a new idea. She wasn't arguing with me anymore. She agreed that I had to stay there and take the dog to the vet. She wanted me to drive her to the 9:15 train from Katona to New York City. I made a lame effort to convince her to wait till morning, but I never expected to win the argument. If she wanted to take the train, I couldn't think of any reason why she should not take the train.
How are you doing? Are you tired?
No, I'm not tired.
Okay. All right, let's talk about this plan to take the train, take her to the train and then to take the train. First, explain what the train situation is as far as commuters are concerned around South Salem, Katona, that area.
From South Salem to the Katona train station, it's a 20-minute drive on Route 35, which is the main drag in that part of Westchester. It's a straight line, it's an easy drive. Katona train station The town of Katona barely exists other than the train station. There's probably 10 acres of parking. During the week, the parking lots fill up with people taking the train from Katona to Manhattan. During the weekend, there's lots of empty space. The town of Katona at the time had one supermarket and probably 6 or 8 little retail establishments. We left probably by 8:45, giving us half an hour to get there, which was plenty of time.
How many trains go between Katona and Manhattan and vice versa?
Oh, there must be 20.
It's, okay. And that area of New York, Westchester County, are there a lot of commuters that live there and commute to the city?
I would say 70%, 3/4 of the people who live in the South Salem area commute either to New York City or to one of the other office centers. Stamford is one, Greenwich is another. Everybody commutes out of South Salem, except for the people who take care of the homes, the gardeners and the various work people, tradesmen, carpenters, plumbers, and stuff like that.
The locals.
The locals.
Okay. Had you taken the train before?
Well, when I lived in Katona for those years, I always took the train. From South Salem, I took it frequently.
Okay. All right, so Kathy tells you this is now her plan?
Yes.
Before she took her shower, when there was that tug of war over the coat and the keys, was she angry at you?
Yes, but seemingly the shower made a difference. She was not angry at me when I came back inside.
Okay. And she had dressed basically in city clothes, the clothes that she came out from the city in?
Yes.
You mentioned cowboy boots and you mentioned jeans. How was she dressed?
Jeans and a blouse and the big tan coat.
And that's the coat that you described as being a quilted, puffy coat that went from her neck to her ankles?
Yes.
Okay. Was it necessary for her to take or pack a bag?
Yes, she took the bag that she came with. Theoretically, she was going to be doing work in South Salem on Saturday and Sunday, but I don't think she did hardly anything. She had some books and a uniform of sorts.
Was it the uniform like scrubs or doctors? What the doctors wear? What was the uniform?
It was more like scrubs.
Okay. So you get to the Katona train station, and the parking lot doesn't have many cars in it. What do you do next?
So the parking lot is mostly empty. We were able to drive right up to the train station where we could sit in the car and wait for the train to come. We were maybe 20 feet from the station. There were half a dozen other cars there with people waiting in them. Couldn't have been there more than 5. I doubt it was even 10 minutes before the train came along. You could tell when the train was coming because everybody started getting out of their cars, walking up onto the platform. So there must have been 6, 8 people on the platform. The train pulled in, the doors opened, everybody on the platform walked into the train. The train stayed 30 seconds, 45 seconds, pulled out, and left.
Was that the last that you saw of Kathy?
That's the last time I saw Kathy.
Did Kathy wear jewelry?
She wore very little jewelry. She had some hippie kind of jewelry, some beads that she would frequently wear as a bracelet or as a necklace. But other than that, she wore very little jewelry.
Did she have some diamond studs that she wore in her ears?
Yes, she had some nice jewelry, but she hardly ever wore that unless we went to a fancy dinner.
What about wedding ring?
She had a wedding ring. She wore it sometimes.
Do you recall whether she was wearing her diamond studs in her ears and her wedding ring when she left that evening?
I have no idea.
You don't know.
Don't know.
Did you actually see her get on the train?
Well, everybody's asked me that question, and I've changed my mind probably a dozen times. She was standing on the platform with half a dozen people. The train pulled into the platform. The doors opened. The people got on the train. The doors closed, and the train left. Now, did I actually see Kathy walk through the doors onto the train? And the answer is I don't know. But there's no place else to go.
Once the train pulled out, was there anybody left?
There was nothing left.
Okay, so what did you do then?
I got into the car. I drove home. I called up the high school student who was used to taking care of the outside of our house, mowed the lawn and did the trimmings on the bushes and the trees, and took care of the plantings and everything. His name was Barry Weiner. I reminded Barry Weiner that he was supposed to rent a pickup truck to take the sailboat. It's called a Sailfish. That's the model of it. That had come with the house and was waterlogged and falling apart. I asked Barry to rent the truck, get some of his friends, and take the Sailfish to the town dump. I also asked him to go to the hardware store and buy several snow shovels, because we did not have, actually we did have snow shovels, but they were stolen. So at that point I had no snow shovel.
Is it important to have snow shovels there in South Salem during the winter?
You needed a snow shovel.
Okay. Did you reach Barry Weiner?
Yes. He said he knew, he said that he, Barry, knew I wanted him to take away the rotting sailfish, and that he had made plans with 2 of his friends to to do it, I believe it was Tuesday.
Okay. So, was the dog there at the house?
Yes,
Did you do anything with the dog when you got back from the station?
well, the dog was there. The dog had a doggy door. The dog would come and go when he wanted to.
So did you take him for a walk or not?
No, in South Salem, really did not have to walk the dog because he was free to come and go when he wanted to.
That area, that neighborhood of South Salem where you had your cottage, is it primarily rural or the big yards and so forth?
Well, right around the lake it was built up. But if you went a little bit away from the lake, you'd get houses on 4-acre zoning and like that. It was a good place for a dog because the streets around the lake were windy. You could not go quickly on them.
Okay. All right. Did anything else happen that night?
No.
Later on, we're jumping ahead, you told Detective Struck that you had gone to the mayor's house to have a drink.
That's what I told him.
Was that true?
No.
Why did you tell him that?
It seemed like he wanted me to tell him that I had done stuff after taking Kathy to the train. I sort of told him what I felt like he wanted to hear.
Did you call Kathy later that night?
No,
Did you tell Detective Struck that you had?
I did. I told Detective Stroke that I had telephoned Kathy at the Riverside Drive apartment and she was watching the news.
And that wasn't true?
That was a lie
Why did you tell that lie?
because I wanted to convince him that Kathy had gotten back to Riverside Drive.
All right. Now, back to the night of January 31st and the morning of February 1st. Did you do anything else that night, that January 31st?
No,
What did you do first thing Monday morning, February 1st?
I took the dog to the vet. I went to a coffee shop in the town of Ridgefield, which is right near South Salem, and had breakfast.
Okay, you went to a coffee shop, you had breakfast.
After taking the dog,
Right.
then I went back to South Salem, shot up the house, drove to New York City, to Riverside Drive,
How long did it take you to drive from South Salem to Riverside Drive that Monday morning?
hour, 15 minutes.
And when you got to to Riverside Drive, what time was it?
9:30, 10.
Assuming Kathy had gone to class that morning, what time would she have left Riverside Drive?
7:38.
So did you expect to find her at home at Riverside Drive at 9:30 or 10 when you got there?
When I got there.
When did you get there? When did you say you got there?
Monday morning, I got back to Riverside Drive at 9:30 or 10. I did not expect to find Kathy there. I expected she would have long since gone to school or to the hospital.
Okay, so what did you find when you got to Riverside Drive?
In the kitchen, on the kitchen table, was a bottle of Coca-Cola and an ashtray with a cigarette in it. I was immediately aware of them being there, because that meant that Kathy had to have been there prior to my getting there, since when I had left the previous Friday evening, I did not remember the bottle of Coca-Cola or the cigarette in the ashtray.
Did Kathy smoke?
She quit frequently. Off and on she smoked.
Did she drink Coca-Cola?
Oh, sure.
Okay. So what did you do next?
I put on a suit and I went to this legal office where I met with my brother and our partners, and there were several lawyers there, and this was at the seller's lawyer's office, and we bought a building with the address of 311 West 43rd Street.
What was that purchase for?
It was a loft building that we converted to be an office building.
All right, how long did that transaction take?
I must have been there for about 3 hours. I'm guessing from 11 to 2, they gave us sandwiches.
And then what did you do?
I went to our office on 6th Avenue and 44th Street for just a little while.
Did you have an office there?
And all at the Durst Organization office on 6th Avenue. I went there for an hour or two, something like that.
Now, probably some of the jurors have not traveled around in Manhattan during a business day. This was a Monday. Did you drive any place, or did you take taxis or subways, or how did you get to, first, the meeting, and second, to your office?
I had the car, so I drove.
Was there parking available?
There was the building where the Durst Organization had its office at 1133 6th Avenue, had a garage in the basement. So I parked in the garage in the building.
What about the meeting where the transaction took place? Was that nearby or not?
That was on the east side, 15-minute drive maybe.
Did they have parking available there?
They had a garage in that building also.
Okay, when you finished that transaction, when you finished the transaction and then you went to your own office, what did you do next?
Well, I called Bert Alamansky. That's Alimansky.
Bert Alamansky. Was he,
Bert Alamansky.
is he a friend of yours?
Yes, he was a friend of mine, and we had made plans to go to the movies that night. he confirmed that yes, he wanted to go to the movie. We were going to see a real long movie called Shoah, Shoah, which is about the Holocaust.
Did you go to the movie?
I went back to Riverside Drive.
My question was, did you go to the movie with Bert Alamansky?
I did.
Did you stay for the whole movie?
No, we lasted about 2 or 2.5 hours. It was very, very depressing.
And then what did you do?
Dropped Bert off at his apartment on East 68th Street, and I drove to South Salem,
What time did you get to South Salem?
midnight-ish.
And then what?
Went to sleep.
Did you hear anything from Kathy?
No,
Were you expecting to hear from her at all?
I was not so much expecting.
Would she sometimes stay at either the hospital or the medical school for days on end?
Frequently, they did something called a sub-intern, where fourth-year medical students would stay overnight like interns have to. They'd work something like 24-hour shifts, 24 hours on, 48 hours off, and then 24 hours on. Also, Kathy had friends who had rooms in Albert Einstein's dormitory. The dormitory was a real home run for a lot of the students who were not from New York City. There were no apartments around Albert Einstein. So the dormitory worked out real well for someone coming from someplace far away, going to school at Albert Einstein, which is a very intensive program. The only place they could go to rent an apartment would be far away. A lot of the students at Albert Einstein had never had apartments before. So this was a whole new thing in the big city.
So my question is, was she able to stay at the school for, say, maybe a day or 2 or 3 in a row while she was doing these 24-hour shifts?
Yes, there were various places where Kathy could stay, and our relationship, as it had gone downhill, she had spent more time not coming home.
So was it unusual for you at this time not to hear from Kathy, or not?
It was not unusual.
So were you worried that first night when you didn't hear from her?
No, I was not worried at all.
All right, you're back at South Salem, and it's Monday night, correct?
Correct.
What do you do next?
I got back around midnight.
What did you do next?
I went to sleep.
And next?
Tuesday. Well, this takes some background, but Kathy and I had decided to sell the South Salem house and to buy a house preferably closer to New York City and preferably a bigger house. South Salem was really too small to have guests visit us.
All right, let me stop you there. You've already described the South Salem house as being very small, square foot wise, and you couldn't have guests. You and Kathy were still talking about getting another place, buying another place, and being together. Is that right?
Yes.
What area were you looking at?
a town called New Canaan,
Spell that for the court reporter.
Canaan, was sort of 45 minutes closer to New York City from South Salem.
All right, now, South Salem's in Westchester County, but it's in New York State. Connecticut is the next state. How can a place in Connecticut be closer to Manhattan than South Salem?
It borders it. Much closer to Manhattan is Greenwich. The way it works out, you have to see a map, but you get a zig and a zag where parts of New Canaan are south of most of Westchester.
Okay, so what had you and Kathy planned on doing around New Canaan?
I was going to look at brokers. Kathy was going to join me if she felt like it.
Did you do that on Tuesday?
Yes,
What did you do? Briefly explain.
I must have met with 6 different brokers and seen 6 different houses.
Were you to be in the office, or what, had you taken time off, or what were you doing?
I had taken off for the whole 2-week time from Friday the 29th until February 15th.
All right, so what did you do for the rest of the day Tuesday?
Well, I got back late in the afternoon, and this is a backstory, but I had planned on figuring out how to use my computer. The office had just started computerizing itself. This was before Microsoft had Windows. The operating system was called MS-DOS, for MS-DOS, for Disk Operating System. And I had lugged the computer from the office up to South Salem and set it up on the desk in the living room. Back then, the computer was a metal box about 12 inches by 18 inches by 6 inches deep. It came with a monitor and a keyboard, but no mouse. So I'd been putting off learning how to do it for a long time, and I had brought the computer with me.
So is that what you did Tuesday evening after you finished looking at houses?
Yes, Tuesday from the middle of the afternoon until pretty late at night, I struggled with MS-DOS. By Wednesday morning, I was actually getting to the point where I could actually do something or other.
So on Wednesday, now we're talking about the 3rd of February. Monday was the 1st, Tuesday was the 2nd, Wednesday's the 3rd. What did you do Wednesday?
I looked at houses in the morning. In the afternoon,
Where did you look for houses?
in Greenwich, Connecticut.
And where is Greenwich from New Canaan?
Greenwich is closer to Manhattan than New Canaan.
All right. Go ahead. What else did you do on Wednesday?
In the afternoon, I went to the office
In Manhattan?
in Manhattan.
What did you do at the office?
I opened the mail.
Had you heard from Kathy?
No,
Had you tried to contact her yourself?
I wouldn't know how to contact her. There were no cell phones. I would have no idea where to telephone.
Did you know anything about what rotation or what classes she was taking at that
Well,
time?
what happened was after going to the office, I went to 37 Riverside Drive and took the messages off the answering machine.
Let me stop you there. So from your office, Wednesday afternoon, you go back to Riverside Drive, correct?
Correct.
Now, you hadn't been there on Tuesday.
I haven't been there since Monday.
And so Wednesday afternoon, what time do you get to Riverside Drive?
3 or 4.
What'd you find when you got there?
I took the messages off the answering machine.
What messages did you get?
There were half a dozen messages, but the only message of interest was a message from Albert Einstein Medical Center for Kathy Durst, and a female voice said, "Mrs. Durst, you didn't attend the such and such on Monday or Tuesday. You need to immediately telephone so-and-so at such and such a number."
What did you do when you got that message?
I telephoned the number. I got an answering machine, not the kind of machine that you can leave a message on, just a straight answering machine.
Do you know who that was or who you called?
I was not familiar with the name of the lady who called or the description she gave me of what Kathy had missed, a clerkship of some sort.
But you didn't know what it was.
No.
All right. Did that concern you?
Yes.
What did you do?
Well, there wasn't much to do about it. I was concerned and I was worried about it. But I intended to go back to South Salem that night, so that's what I did.
What time did you leave to go back to South Salem Wednesday evening?
Probably around 6.
Was it already dark?
Yes.
And what time did you get to South Salem?
7.
Did you have any kind of answering machine on your phone at South Salem?
I had a messaging system. We have the same kind of answering machine both in South Salem and on Riverside Drive.
Was there any message to you on that machine at South
The
Salem?
only message was from Bert Alamansky, who left me a sort of humorous message that he was never going to let me take him to the movies again.
Okay. Did you call Susan Berman that night, the 3rd?
Either Wednesday or Thursday we spoke. I don't remember which it was.
Had you talked to her at any time on either the 31st, the 1st, or the 2nd, to Susan Berman, that is?
No.
Where was Susan Berman living then?
Well, she was in Beekman Place.
And there, a call from South Salem then to Beekman Place would be a toll call that would show up on the records?
Correct.
You've seen the records that are in evidence here, and the only record of a telephone call between you and Susan Berman is the telephone call on February the 3rd from South Salem to Susan's number. Is that the call that you just described you made?
It must have been.
What did you talk about?
I do not think I brought up that Kathy had not attended whatever it was. At that point, I was more concerned about how she could miss 2 days of school completely like that than about anything happening to her. I just figured this was a typical she found something fun to do.
Okay. I'm looking at the only watch I have here. So the situation Wednesday evening is you're concerned, but you're more concerned about Kathy missing class than you are that something's happened to her. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, it never dawned on me that anything could happen to her. It was more like, what had Kathy done to Kathy?
And when you say, what had Kathy done to Kathy, what do you mean your concern was?
The cocaine and the alcohol.
Okay. That's going to get us to Thursday, February the 4th. What did you do? You went to South Salem. So you're at South Salem when you make the call to Susan Berman on the 3rd, in the evening of the 3rd. What did you do?
First thing, I had dates to look at more houses in New Canaan. First thing I did was call the telephone number that Kathy was supposed to call, and I spoke to a lady who explained to me that Kathy had not been to I think it was a pediatric clerkship with a doctor something or other, and that unless Kathy immediately spoke to them or showed up, I guess, she was going to have to take an incomplete in the clerkship.
So that was Thursday. That's Thursday morning, I presume.
Thursday morning.
And so now what is your concern?
I was still not imagining that something could happen to Kathy. I was not imagining that the last time I would see her was when she stepped onto the train. I was imagining that she was out someplace having fun with her Gilberta or her other friends.
So what did you do about it?
Well, Thursday, I looked at houses in New Canaan. That afternoon, I called back that same number to see if Kathy had made an appearance, and she had not. Now I'm worried.
Where did you call from? When you called back that same number, the number that had called and left a message at Riverside Drive, what did you do? Where did you call from, excuse me?
I'm trying to remember where I called from.
Where were you when you called? Maybe that'll help.
Yeah, I think I was still at the broker's office
And the broker's office would be located where?
in New Canaan.
All right. And so you called the same number, the lady.
I called back the same number and was told that Kathy had not shown up and had not called.
What did you do after that?
Well, then I was worried. When I got back to South Salem, I decided I would find out how to go about reporting a missing person. So I got the number for the 20th precinct, which is the precinct for Riverside Drive, and I telephoned them.
So the precinct for Riverside Drive in New York, in Manhattan, is the 20th precinct, as you said. What happened when you called the 20th precinct to report Kathy missing?
So I got a female voice for the receptionist, And I asked, how do I go about reporting a missing person? And the lady said, who's missing? And I said, Kathy Durst, my wife. The lady had a sense of humor. She said to me, with a little bit of a giggle, have you checked with your wife's boyfriend?
How did you take that?
I said, my wife does not have a boyfriend. She said, have you checked with all your wife's boyfriends?
Plural?
She also told me that to make a missing person report, you have to speak to the immediate family member of the person you're reporting as missing. And you have
So, go ahead. If you finish the conversation, she told you.
and you have to make the report in person.
Okay. So, the lady at the 20th precinct tells you you have to make it report in person and you have to talk to her family or friends. You had not talked to any family or friends, had you?
About her being missing?
Yeah.
No.
And you had not made it in person, you'd made a phone call. So what did you do? Did you call her family?
Well, the lady gave me some explanation. She said a missing person is a very unusual kind of crime because as many times as not, the person who is reported as being missing is desirous of being missing from the person doing the reporting. And when that happens, the detective who has accepted the case as a crime finds himself in the position of a marriage counselor, something the detective has not been trained to do, and something what the detective is probably not that good at. So the detectives are very choosy about accepting a missing person as a crime.
So did you call any of Kathy's family?
That night, I called Jimmy McCormack, Kathy's brother, who was still living at home. I called the family number and I asked him, I told him about taking Kathy to the train, and I told him about the messages that I had gotten from the lady at Albert Einstein. I was of the impression that maybe this was some kind of a game that Kathy and her friends were playing.
So you,
I wanted Jimmy to tell Kathy that this was serious stuff and that I was going to go to the police on Friday if I had not heard from Kathy.
in your mind at that time, were you still, what was in your mind at that time about what might have happened?
Well, I was worried, but I jumped ahead of myself in one way. Maybe 3 months before then, Kathy had given me the impression that she had figured out, well, I gotta back up even farther. Not long after we moved to Riverside Drive, Kathy got the results of a very important exam that all fourth-year medical students take, which plays a big part in what hospital they will be able to intern in. Kathy had done badly on the exam. Kathy explained to me that if she retook the exam and did better, they would tend to look at the best results. That's when Kathy decided to go into this Get Off the Drugs program at Lenox Hill Hospital so that she could get a better result and intern in one of the hospitals she was interested in. Kathy pictured that if she did not retake the exam, she would intern in a small suburban hospital in the endless suburbs around New York City, probably on Long Island or in New Jersey.
So did you put together, you're not hearing from Kathy, but hearing from the school, with this earlier plan that Kathy had to get off cocaine and to take further, or to retake the exam?
Yes, and at some point, probably around Christmas of 1981, Kathy said she had a new scheme that she was going to use so that she could retake the exam and be able to intern where she wanted to intern. I figured this was all part of this scheme, and I impressed upon Jimmy to the extent possible that if Jimmy knew anything about what Kathy was doing, he should promptly tell her that this is important, serious stuff, because I'm going to go to the police.
That's Thursday evening. Did you call anybody else?
The only family member I called was Jimmy McCormack.
So Friday. You're in South Salem, correct? Thursday evening?
Correct.
And so Friday, what did you do?
I looked at houses in Greenwich in the morning, and then I went to the office in the afternoon. I called the answering machine at Riverside Drive and listened to the messages, and there was no new message from Albert Einstein. So I went to Dad's office. When I got to Dad's office, Douglas Durst was there, and our general counsel, Leonard Mandel, was there. I told the three of them about putting Kathy on the train and the calls from Albert Einstein. I told the three of them I intended to go to the 20th precinct that afternoon and report Kathy as missing. The three of them were sure that that was a very bad idea.
Why would it be a bad idea?
The police would do nothing, since the reporters follow every time there's a new report of a crime. The reporters for the various newspapers are able to copy it. Dad said that he could see. Dad said he could see the headline in the New York Post. Porn king Durst, daughter-in-law, gone missing.
So if the jury doesn't know, is the New York Post a tabloid?
Yes, it's not the National Enquirer, but it's close. Any story about anyone who's a semi-celebrity doing something or other nasty will get picked up in the New York Post.
You said that your dad's statement about what he feared the headline would be is porn king, son-in-law, wife goes missing, something like that. Why would your dad be called a porn king?
We've been accused repeatedly of having brothels in our hotels.
Did you?
Yes,
Were they brothels that your father was responsible for?
in the movie All Good Things that we all saw, it showed Ryan Gosling playing Robert Durst showing up at some brothel where they were busting all the prostitutes and blaming it on the Durst family.
Was that a true depiction of what your father was about or what the Durst organization was about?
No, there were brothels in our old SRO hotels, but we were strictly the landlord. We never operated anything.
It's 3:30, and we do have we need to break. So we're going to do that, ladies and gentlemen. I want to let you know that we're almost certainly going to be here on the 19th. There's only the slightest chance that we'll not be here, so plan to be here on the 19th. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. That's next Thursday, the 19th. Do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. Yes.
Are we here on the 18th?
We're here for half the day on the 18th, I believe. We're here on the 18th until 12. And then we'll leave early on the 18th. All right, thank you. We'll see you all. If you wanted to remain alternate number 3, you may.